Yay, yay. Hi, yes, I'm Alison Arngrim, and this is the Alison Arngrim Show. Yes, some of you may remember me as evil Nellie Olson, but tonight, thankfully, I am Alison Arngrim, and this is the Alison Arngrim Show. And here on the Alison Arngrim Show, we talk about things that make us feel good. The TV shows and the movies that made us feel good and the people who made them. And people who are doing things now to make the world a better and more interesting place. Yes, I have a twofer tonight. I have two people. And you know, I always love it when I have on people I know that I know. So this is one of those, I did their show. They're doing my show things, which we just love. We just love. Well, many of you remember, God, who does not, especially live in LA, Fritz Coleman. Fritz Coleman. Yes, Fritz Coleman. Yes, did KNBC, the weather guy. And so we saw him like every day forever. And then he's hysterical and he does comedy and he does one-man shows and he does this. Well, Fritz Coleman and Louise Palanker, who is also amazing. You're not going to believe all the stuff she's done. Can you say the cow sills? Wait, the cow sills. Yes, just the whole thing about the cow sills. And the two of them have a show, Media Path Podcast. And I was on it. They interviewed me and we had so much fun that they decided to come over to my house electronically, as it were. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have Fritz Coleman and Louise Palanker.
We're so glad to be with you. And having you on there, it was one of the most entertaining hours because we just asked you 3 questions and then we went out for lunch and you were telling these great stories about it. It was a lot of fun.
This is true. This is like interviews with me. What did you ask her? We asked her like 1 or 2 things. How long was the show? 3 hours.
It's awesome. You're the world's best guest for that reason.
We actually simply said, be charming and delightful. And then we left the room and came back and the show was done.
It's like, what do you want to know? But yeah, so I look at your stuff. And of course, Fritz, I mean, I've known you around town for forever.
You and I would rub elbows at the Laugh Factory, but not.
We go way back to the Laugh Factory and the Improv and stuff, and absolutely. And yes, you were the man on TV. I mean, back in the day, none of us knew what was going to happen tomorrow, if it was going to rain or not, except we had to have Fritz come tell us. That's the only way we.
Now they ask me, I just say, please look on your phone and never talk to me again.
Now it's all the body app.
You couldn't look on your phone back there, and I actually provided a service, which is lovely.
It was like a real thing. I mean, now we tune in, we see a weatherman and going, yeah, my phone told me that an hour ago.
Exactly.
It's just not as exciting, but you were excited.
At precisely the right time.
And then you've also just been doing the stand-up and the one-man show thing for years. You have a thing, what was it, Unassisted Living, which I have the title.
A new special airing on Tubi, which is a free streaming service. It's like Hulu or Freevee. They do a very minimal amount of advertising on there. And everybody can get it. It's called Tubi, Tubi. Just type in my name and it pops up. And it's about, being of a certain age. And I'm having so much fun with it. And I'm performing it around town. I'm doing a residency at the El Portal Theater in North Hollywood.
I love the El Portal.
Yes, I'm doing
if anyone has not been to the El Portal.
I hope you'll come. You'll come to see a show.
When is it?
We do it once a month between now and November. And it's 3:00 on a Sunday afternoon because my demographic tends to go to church, take a nap, come to my show, then go out to dinner with an irritating relative. And so they want to be home early.
Are you the early bird special of comedy?
3:00, absolutely. The Blue Plate special. My group loves that on a Sunday. So we're doing that and I'm having fun. Thank you for letting me announce it.
Oh, that's fabulous. That's fabulous. And then Louise, I met you on your fabulous show, and I had not met you before.
Yes.
You do everything. I'm reading how you have what, 5 or 6 shows, actually. You have multiple shows.
Yes, I am the overscheduled child. I'm trying to get a nap in. I think I'm just one of those people that when it became possible for us to self-publish, i.e. 2004, Final Cut or GarageBand came loaded with your computer. That was bad news for everyone who knew me because, I was that person saying, look what I made. And then you can put it up on YouTube and SoundCloud and whatever. And so I became that person very quickly. It was disturbing.
Well, I didn't really become that person till the pandemic because I wasn't even smart enough to know those. I had been taught how to do Facebook Live by the gal who played Baby Grace on the show. She says, how you do Facebook Live. I literally, Baby Grace had to teach me Facebook Live. And then when 2020 hit, before I knew it, I was doing Zoom and Be Live and stageit.com and doing my shows on pay-per-view and reading books and then I YouTube and Facebook. And I knew none of that until I had to.
Well, God bless Baby Grace, because we need that person in our lives. I mean, Fritz has a daughter. That's why he breeds for tech support. So so that's great. But yeah, but I read your book twice. I read it first when it came out, and then I read it again when you were coming on our podcast. And I couldn't believe it the second time I read it, even though I had already read it. It's a book that one needs to read more than once. It's so funny. And it just reminds me of Frank McCourt in that you find the comedy in the tragedy of your childhood.
Yes, because was it pain plus time equals comedy.
Right.
And that's, yeah. And I remember making notes when I was writing it about things. And I said, one of the things I wrote down is whatever it was, it's funny. If it wasn't funny then, it's funny now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
You are correct. That is and I think it's good for us to think about that when the power is out and the basement is flooding. You know, this will be funny. It will be
hysterical. Now, what is that? I'm reading this as something. The Cowsills.
Right. The Cowsills.
You made a movie about the Cowsills.
Now, did you go to school with any Cowsills? Because some of them moved out here and went to school here with showbiz kids. Yeah.
I didn't go to school with them. I guess my Cowsill remove. I mean, of course, I remember how the Partridge Family, which was supposed to be the Cowsills,
right,
which I remember that happening. And I remember knowing it was supposed to be the Cowsills before then and going, oh, the Cowsills, I guess that didn't work out because my father was a manager. And so I knew it was my father was managing a band who I'm trying to remember their real name, like Myers, but they changed their name, picked out of the phone book, and they were the Allens as the Allens, and it was so the Cowsills, and it was like this is what people were doing then. Well, we got the four brothers and the sister, and she sings, and this guy's on drugs, and they were absolutely modeling themselves very much of the Cowsills and these kind of bands. So it was that whole Nilu, the Cowsills, and the Allens. So what the heck happened, and what was this thing you made about the Cowsills?
Well, I made a documentary. I had no idea how to make a documentary, but as I alluded to earlier, I'm a little too quick to attempt things on my own. It became an 8-year struggle to get a documentary made. And I went down a lot of roads that became cul-de-sacs and turned around and came back out. And I just I like to finish things. And I guess I'm just stubborn that way, like you. And so it just took 8 years. And while we were making the documentary, 2 of the Cowsills died. So it's one of those documentaries where you start watching thinking it's one story and then a story happens while you're watching.
And it's so weird because they really were the show. The Partridge Family was going to be the Cowsills. And I mean, Shirley Jones and David Cassidy are fabulous.
I think you would really appreciate the movie, Alison, because the overview of it is that what you see on television does not represent the truth of a person's life and what they've been through. And the Cowsills are a great example, not only for individual stories like your own, but if you look at the Jacksons and some of these other families like Squeaky Clean, they have their show business persona, and they're so not like that. And their history is nothing like that, not reflected in their TV truth at all. And it's really a wonderful movie about the truth of an American family. And it's got, the parental abuse and the parental swirling away of money and all that stuff. It's really a nice piece of work. She did an amazing job. And it's still streaming on Amazon Prime right now.
Well, and this thing, every time I have an interview with anyone who worked in TV under the age of 18, even, Baby Grace or something the other day, and we wind up talking about, well, how did this affect you? Because working as a child, and did the parents steal the money, and what happened? Because so much, it is just a magnet for the wrong kind of personalities.
Exactly.
I mean, we've seen how adults are drawn to show business who really don't have the personality for that and get into all kinds of trouble, and their lives get a hell in a handcart. But when children get into it, we see that there are parents where it's a bad scene and it's gasoline on a fire.
And it seems to me that any world within that is attractive, be it politics or show business, it will attract people who really want to do good work, and it will also attract people that just need a lot of attention and are very insecure and want to be valid and validated constantly. They should just stay home and be influencers, and they should leave
exactly.
They should leave innocent folks out of it. But as you know, and then add children to that mix, and holy God, at least there's not, children in Congress. Because if some stage parent could get her daughter elected to Congress, she would do it.
Yeah. They would do it, and it would be even more horrible than like child stardom.
You'd have those Congress mothers hanging around in the hall, dictating policy all day long.
I totally see this because having been to Washington and Sacramento and Albany, I see with lobbyists, and there are people who lobby where it's like the family lobbyists, and it's like, oh my God, it's like stage parents.
You do expect George Santos to suddenly have a stage mother come around the corner and say, well, look what I made.
George, tell them the other story. But it's true, and it's so bonkers that it's people like if you can sort of see your child as a commodity, what else can you do? And that's the problem, is it leads to a lot of problems. And well, you're talking about like how people's TV truth, the TV never shows what it's really like, even when it's not completely hideous. There's so many removes. There's so many people in between the interview and then the finished product. This will just go on as is. We'll just put this up here. But I was 6 years old when I found out that what magazines printed was not very often actually what the person said.
Wait, what?
6. I found out that magazines printed things that you didn't necessarily say.
6. Oh, 6. That's a dark day.
Some people still haven't learned that in our media.
No, I was a kid. My family, we were always in the papers. I mean, I've got clippings from New York where there's my parents being black and white pictures while being interviewed. So it was a normal thing to have media come to our home and interview us. I talk about it in the book. And, I don't know, Tiger Beat 16, somebody. And they did a lovely interview. We talked to them. We had lunch, and they were very nice. And they left. And then, like I said, like 6. And we get the article, and the pictures are lovely. And I'm like, I didn't say that. That's not what I said. And Mom didn't say that. And in fact, none of us said that. Wait, what is this article? What are they talking about? And they didn't put the thing that I said about that. And what's this about a pie? What about Mom making? Mom doesn't cook. Why is she making a pie?
Cook.
And your dad
what is
was
happening that she has suddenly miraculously made this pie? Who are these people? They were there. What is going on? They were. And my father, oh my God. So he did. And he said, well, this stuff, and he said, and this is really, really super entertainment model. He said, this is, fan magazines. He said, there's some level of this in all the magazines. Now, this is going to be super extreme because, for heaven's sakes, it's Tiger Beat. Right. No one's even expecting it to be real. They interviewed us. They got the general theme. He says, look out here. I think this one. Oh, here's a thing we said. There's like one thing in there we said. He said, but they're telling a story. And they're just taking the bits and pieces from us to sort of fit that story. And because at least it's, 16 Tiger Beat, no one's expecting this to be real. They're kind of like just looking at the pictures. He said, but this is with all the articles. So when you're reading about Bobby Sherman or Sajid Khan or something, they didn't say that either.
Right.
No,
I was like, wow.
Next thing you know, you have QAnon.
Right, exactly. It was the QAnon of fandom, and he said, pre-internet, can't read everything, you believe everything you read. And he said, the idea is that the bigger magazines, the more news ones, that it's better. He says, but I guarantee you can go get a TV Guide or a Newsweek, and there's something in there somebody didn't actually say, and that's why you often see people on the TV talking about retractions, and that's how it goes. And I was like, really? As a child, I did the second grade. So yeah, I learned that stuff wasn't real, and I knew that by the time I was 12 and 13 was famous, that the image I put on TV was already filtered through the publicist and the interviewer and how many things before it got there and wasn't really.
But what a hard thing for a young child to have to get used to.
Right?
And get your head wrapped around, because it just teaches you that the whole world can't be trusted.
They can't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a shame.
But yeah, I learned that adults were crazy when I was very young. But now, Fritz, you've been in this business forever, and in news no less. And so how have you seen it change? I mean, I think it's more so. I mean, obviously there were the magazines that were clearly entertainment, were going to be jibber jabber from the get-go. How have you seen, is it is it more so even more of a remove? On the one hand, we have celebrities contacting their fans
I'll
more
tell you what,
directly through the
this is a
internet,
great chance for me to make up an excuse for the business I just retired from.
but
And one is that people used to approach me. They don't do it so much anymore. But people used to approach me in the street and say, I don't watch NBC anymore. They're so left wing. I said, well, wait a minute. Are you talking about MSNBC, the cable channel? Are you talking about the local news? Because the local news is not skewed to the left or right. Broadcast television, advertiser-supported television, where you have to have a license to broadcast.
boom.
Your whole job every day is to avoid a lawsuit. So you can't take one side or the other, and not represent, the equal practice of giving the other side a chance to tell the opposing viewpoint, because you would lose your license. Broadcast, that is the network affiliates like Channel 4, 7, 5, 9, all this. They need to have a license to practice from the FCC. And if you are proven to skew one side or the other in broadcast television, you can lose your license. Now, that's not
if you
cable.
go too crazy. I mean, they will do some crazy stuff, but they can only go so far.
Yes, that's true. And cable is different because you're paying for that service. It's like HBO. How can HBO get away with the language and Showtime? Because you're paying for it. It is your choice. Broadcast is free television, so there are stipulations connected with it. So anyway, people would try to sort of engage me in an argument about NBC being skewed. I said, you need to separate the cable from the broadcast. We do not skew anything. Our job is to get on TV the best pictures of the day, and God willing, there's a freeway chase, and we make everybody happy.
Right? Or like, we talk about Taylor Swift tickets for 5 hours.
But over time, things have really, just like all of society, things have become so polarized that it really is a different time in the media. And the problem is that people are not they're not formulating their opinions by watching television news anymore. They're doing it from a Facebook feed or an internet source. And the problem with news on the internet is there are no gatekeepers. There are no editors that can sit and say, this is not true. We can't say this. This is not true. You can publish anything you want on the internet, and it doesn't have to be true. And if you believe it and don't engage yourself in another viewpoint to get the truth of what's going on, that's how people get twisted. And that's where people are right now. So to answer your question in a really long way, that's what happened over my career. I watched people stop using television as their primary source of news, stop watching newspapers, reading newspapers as their primary source of news, but getting it from the web, where it's the Wild West. There are no gatekeepers, and you have no sense of truth.
And there's no questioning of it, because I'll have people all the time say, oh gosh, I read this article online, and sometimes over trivial, some prairie matter, and I'll say, okay, well, who was it? What was it? From whom? From what?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. And they'll go back and look. I'll say, now, is that an article from the online CBS, NBC, ABC, anybody?
Yeah.
Oh,
a reputable
no, it's
source.
Joe's News Shack. It's just something that some guy.
I'm gonna invest in Joe.
Or not even that. Somebody just posts an opinion on Facebook, and if it plays into your echo chamber, if it sounds like something you could believe in, just as a nugget of what you believe in it, then you just grasp onto it and then send it to somebody else.
And they reading it. They don't even read it. They share, and then they'll read. The best one is the parody ones. It'll write an article that is blatantly insane and wrong. You go, no, come on, they're not really trying to even sell this as real. And then you kind of go, oh wait, this is actually. It's a joke. Okay, haha. And you start reading down the paragraph and you go, ha 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 ha. But like The Onion, it's like, but it doesn't say The Onion. It says Schmolo, whatever news. And then if you go to the bottom, it's like About Us. It says, we are a parody news source and this is all a joke. And they have the names of the writers are all jokes. They're almost like the IP freely. Yeah, they're clearly all the names of the reporters are made up joke names. And you go, oh, ha 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 ha. Except I have had people call me and email me, well, I read this article. And I'm like, did you read the second paragraph where they start the talking dog comes in and then the name of the author is
that's what I'm saying. And there's just there's a segment of our society that's so disconnected from reality, and they're so insecure about their own opinion. They're just looking for stuff that feeds their truth, that people buy this stuff. That's why we're in the political mess we're in
It
right
pushes
now.
emotional buttons, and like many people don't differentiate between a news report, however skewed or biased, and an obviously talking heads opinion show. Now, back in the day when we were really young, they used to make that really, really distinct. So a Walter Cronkite type person would come on and say, and here is the news. And then in another part of the program, maybe in the daytime news or at another hour, they would say, and now we're going to discuss opinions of the day's events.
Right.
And they would have, here's two experts in the field, and they say, well, I think that's a terrible idea. And they would,
Right.
but it was really, really clear. Now we're going to have the opinion discussion part. Cable has got a lot of time to
and
fill.
then Andy Rooney would say, what's up with envelopes? I don't understand them. They don't, so you knew it was Andy Rooney, and he was upset. And that's fine.
But you knew that was the part. But now there's 9 hours of talking head people and like an hour of news. And I'll watch it. Sometimes I'll watch it. Go, okay, wait, that was news. That was 3 minutes. Okay, these people are just talking about the thing. Oh, wow. Now these people have come on to talk about the people who were talking about the, I'm getting a headache. And I think, hilarious. And I'll watch and go, okay, this is an opinion. Now it's an opinion on the opinion. But I know that it's this much news. People don't. People say, I watched the news. And they said, they went, no, I watched the one where the guy was talking about the news.
And that goes back to, I think 60 Minutes even takes responsibility for making the news a commercial product. So people started to not be able to distinguish between fact and entertainment because, shows like Entertainment Tonight and Hard Copy was another one of those, and Inside Edition. It was a news format, but it was really not factual.
It's like a fan magazine on TV.
People like Rush Limbaugh and Tucker Carlson always use that as their go-to excuse, but I'm not a journalist, I'm an entertainer.
In court, when sued, they had to go, oh, it was entertainment. I was kidding. I was there. It's literally is gone. It's very weird.
Alex Jones saying I'm an entertainer.
Yes,
but you can't say I make food and have poison in it.
That dude is very dangerous.
I was making pretend food. You weren't supposed to eat it. That would be the equivalent. It's pretend food. It was the window. But yeah, it's very bizarre. So we live in this other age where it's just people are getting, and it's the button pushing. That's why on cable, because you keep people paying the subscription, they will do very emotional stuff. Hence the MSNBC, hence the Fox, where it's like, emergency. It's an opinion piece, but it's emergency, and people like that. And I see all the time where people post stuff. And you're like, is this an actual story? No, this is just like a meme, a blurb about something they don't like, but it really gets you riled up. So they will share that over and over and over and over.
And the problem is both sides of the political equation, both the right wing and the left wing, are on a 24-hour news cycle. They have to feed this monster every day. So in both extremes, stuff's getting in there that probably shouldn't be in there and probably shouldn't represent the truth of the day, because
I don't think we can conflate them both, because I think
they have to fill the time.
Hardcore lying, and the left is just having a stringent opinion about the news. Definitely, if you listen to Lawrence O'Donnell's opener, he's definitely strident. I get it, but he's not lying.
No.
Right. There's the intentional fooling with it for a specific agenda, where we're going to blatantly go put out a story that isn't real because we want this thing to happen, as opposed to we need the eyeballs on the screen, so let's yell a lot. So it's, you have the spectrum of that. Now, then we also have the thing, and I've seen this even on my local stuff, where because now everything is owned by somebody who's owned by somebody who's now owned by somebody, and there's 3 corporations. I find myself watching, and they often do the disclaimer. They will often say, this network is a subsidiary of, and name the entertainment company, because they just did like an hour on the new album release of. And I'll sit there and I go, and they're talking about someone, it might even be an entertainer I like, it's very nice, but they are talking about their new record or their new show or their new concert, like for freaking ever. And I'm like, wow, wait a minute, they're owned by, crap, if they're owned by the same people who own the record company, really, we're gonna.
Well, some people think that's where everything went south when there is no antitrust in the media business now.
All the acquisitions.
One company consumed another company, and people who are not really broadcasters or not really journalists now are in charge, and they just want the bottom line to be solvent. So it's in the old days, it was journalism companies that owned news outlets. Right. Now it's entertainment companies.
And as soon as the light bulb company bought NBC, it was like game over.
I mean, that's exactly what happened. General Electric used to own NBC, and they make great jet engines and dishwashers, but they weren't a news thing, and so that got to, not that they're not a wonderful company in what they do, but that turned out to be an issue, because profit over journalism is what happens after a while.
And we do see it. Now, we are obviously of generations here older than many of the people out there. I have a weird fan base where, because I'm 61, so I'm sort of like, technically whatever on the calendar, I'm like tail end of boomer, but when I reach, I go, oh yeah, no, I'm Gen X, because I'm still like that mid 60s. I'm like, yeah, no, I wasn't into the Beatles, I was into the Sex Pistols. Hi, yes, Gen X. Okay, good. So definitely Gen X, but I'm old. My fan base is weird. We got a huge bunch of boomers and Gen X, obviously watched Little House back in the day, but we have this weird like rerun generation and the VHS generation and the DVD generation and the streaming generation. So I'll do my show and I've got a bunch of 50-year-old women, and then I've got a bunch of people in their 20s and 30s down in the front row. I'm like, who are you? And
I don't know. You're 14 forever, Alison. You are 14.
Exactly. How did she get so old? I moisturize heavily though, so I'm holding up. But stay out of the sun. I can't go in the sun. I'm a vampire. We are that. So we have the boomer thing, and a lot of your stuff, as you talk about with the show, with your podcast and with your shows, targeted very much for the boomers, and then you have a lot of the Generation X stuff. Do you see a lot of crossover with the generations, or do you find yourself out here and a lot of the next one down's Millennial Z, what have you, just giving you a blank stare? Do you get much crossover? How do you feel with this whole, now our generations didn't all used to have names. I think it's nice that we all have names now.
I think the boomers were the first generation that got a name. They didn't get Gen.
No, first it was the greatest.
You want to be Gen Boomer? Come on.
First it was the greatest generation. That was the World War II.
Silent generation.
Yes.
We named them after. We named the greatest generation afterwards.
Yeah.
If they had only known when they were slogging through the Depression that they were great, it would have been helpful.
But that's good. My father-in-law lived to be 100, so we're able to tell him, "Do you know that you're the greatest generation?"
To answer your question, thanks to people like you, we have found this sweet spot in our show. We didn't set out to do that, but we found the sweet spot in our show where people who were stars of the television that we grew up with, 60s and 70s, even early 80s, has turned out to be a big point of interest to our listeners. And they love to have people like you come on and other people and learn about what kind of a human being you are, because you were coming in their household for all these years. So that just turned out to be something we stumbled across, but it turns out to be very important to our show.
Yeah, it's a conversation that I think is a long time coming because of these little blurbs. They'll see, oh, look how Cindy Brady looks, and it's a woman with giant breasts, and like they're trying to figure out if everyone's okay, and the internet isn't a good indication. And when you guys would go on Mike Douglas, it was like for 7 minutes or 8 minutes, and a podcast is perfect. They get to sit with you and know you, and the one challenge we have, and I don't know if you run into it, is that boomers don't always know how to access a podcast. So they think it's not available to them. They don't understand. It's in your pocket. Just take out your phone and or go to YouTube. We're on YouTube, and I'm not sure where your show is available, but it's easier than they think. It's not a heavy lift. And they would love it. They would just love it. It's the conversation they've been waiting for all their lives.
But we have UBN Go, it rolls over, becomes a podcast, and then it's also on Facebook. So a lot of people, I can find it on the Facebook. You can find it on the Facebook.
Yes.
But it's bananas, because we have the whole technological divide, and it's all very weird. I do get them all, but so I had Michael Learnett, who was the mother on the Waltons.
Yeah, we had her too. God, can you believe her?
But she's a twofer, because she was on the Waltons, which is even started even before Little House, so early 70s, and then she's Jeffrey Dahmer's grandma.
He was
Right?
excellent.
in the movie, the new movie.
And the
What a
So
cool thing
lady.
about that is,
She's
I mean,
extraordinary.
everybody that watches Little House wasn't aware of your comedy skills and your performance skills. So the beautiful thing about coming on a show like yours or ours is people learn the three-dimensional quality of this human being that was a child star that came into our living room. Another example of that was my favorite example was Chris Knight, who was on the Brady's. And
yes,
he was a great, he was a Brady kid, and he was all the things you expect from a young actor. Turns out the guy's a computer genius. And we had a great conversation with him about, he consults major companies and their computer software. And it's really cool for people to learn that these people that were such a part of their childhood are three-dimensional grown adults, and they're doing cool stuff. So that's part of the fun for me.
well, I like to, and like I said, we get the crossover because of the weird thing where you have really young people who are into the Brady Bunch, who are into
Yeah.
Little House on the Prairie, who are into these shows, who are like,
Yeah.
we're not born. I talked to Bill like, you were not born. We're doing that, like, no, but I watch it all the time. I'm like, okay. So we have these fabulous crossover things. But it also is the technological one. We had a thing because I was doing my stand up on stage.com, speak with pay a couple of bucks and see the show in their living room.
Yeah.
And other people started doing it, and they had all sorts of cabaret performers doing it. It was really cool because a lot of people, from drag queens to cabaret performers to stand-ups, were like, I'm stuck in my house. I can't go to the club, is closed. What do I do? Hey, you can go get out your band or whatever you're doing, go on from your living room, and people can buy a ticket and watch it. So the comedian Rich Little, who still alive 4 nights a week down at the club in Vegas, he's got a gig, still working it, says, hey, can I do this? I'm dying to do this. It sounds great. And he says, I can't, he's so frustrated. He's one of those people, he has to work all the time. And so he is out there doing his set. So he's like, I could do an internet show. Wait, we can do that. We can do that. So we got it together, and he had a really great tech guy. I said, yeah, I can do this. I can even do special effects. We can show your drawings. We can make this happen. And I came over to help with it because, again, his fan base, not so how did we sell this? Because we had all these very young people who knew how to get onto stage it, but who were like, Rich Little? I think I know who Rich Little is.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the guy, my mom told me that. And then you had this huge group of, oh my God, we love Rich Little. We need to go to Vegas to see him. We love him. He could be in our living room. What button do I push, honey? So this is what we had. So we started selling it to people as, get the greatest gift for your parents or grandparents. Log on to stage it,
great sales
buy buy tickets, and get some popcorn, and tell your parents you've got Rich Little coming to their living room, and you push the buttons on the thing and watch it together as a family. And people went wild, and it totally worked.
What a great concept, because then they get to spend time together too.
Exactly. So now you have something to watch together. It'll be fun. He does impressions of new people as well as old. It'll be great. You'll love. And so it really was a marvelous crossover. But that's the thing, is that what do you do when the thing you're selling? Because, as I said, we had the whole thing where the interviews have gotten more separate from what people really are. But then you have celebrities contacting their fans directly with Instagram and YouTube but then you have the technological gap. Now, I do love the articles that say, look who so-and-so, what so-and-so turned into, because there's one with my picture.
I would imagine there is.
Absolutely.
And what happens when you click on
wonderful. Oh, I'm like not even in the thing. You click, there's like 60 celebrities. I'm not even like in there.
Yeah, it's clickbait. Yeah.
And it's true clickbait. And then there's one where you keep scrolling past it. You'll find me, and it's a perfectly nice article, and it says everything I'm doing. And you're like, why do they have the lady's mugshot up there as her? And there is one, and there's a picture of Nellie, and then there's a picture of this lady who, a friend of mine tracked it down. She said, this appears to be a mugshot from Missouri, I think. And this woman was picked up, and she's wearing a Christmas shirt, something about like, say, Santa, I've been bad kind of thing. It's really silly. And it looks like she may have been drinking. She seems to have been arrested. Maybe it was like it was too loud at a party, and neighbors called. I'm hoping she's fine. People said, but this poor woman. I'm like, I would have her on my show. If she surfaces, I will have her on my show. But this woman's mugshot, and that's it. It does not look like me. It doesn't even look close to anything ever.
Wow.
But by God, it's out there. And my friends were all upset. I liked it so much, I made it my profile page for a month on Facebook.
And there's no recourse to that, right?
What do you
Particularly if you don't know who posted it.
There's no one there. If you try to track down, okay, who is this company that put up this article with these pictures? They don't exist. They don't exist. There's no
Right.
phone. Hi, can I get? Did somebody call?
Right.
Wow.
It's an algorithm. They like somebody in a basement in some other country through a series of algorithms said these people are popular, and it's really weird. Oh, a friend of mine actually found the T-shirt that the lady is wearing in her picture and bought it for me so I can actually wear it.
Oh, that's
That is a thoughtful gift.
It's
But
terrible.
I think it's clickbait, and I think it's advertising, so they get paid for the number of clicks. So they're trying to make
100%.
the thumbnail as attractive as possible to get someone to click, and then the person goes, "Oh, there's nothing here about Alison Arngrim. I'm going to back out." But I
by
think
then they've
a
clicked
great
on
way
the
to
ads.
save America would be if, for people that watch Fox News all day, if we had those clickbaits of see what Nellie Olson looks like today, and you clicked on it, and it would just say the truth as opposed to all the lies that are being disseminated, through Fox News or similar channels, because that's where people are. And maybe that's a great place to put, like, look what Joe Biden did for America.
So you're coming up with clickbait with actual like educational materials
Yes.
and
It ain't
like
gonna
true
work.
news, like not fake news to have like educational materials, but actually going on in current events. But it's like, click here, Tom Selleck's great tragedy.
Exactly. But we would need like some sort of pact, to help fund it.
I could get into this. I think I would. But see, now the thing is, I took it as a compliment because as ghastly as these clickbait things, my friends were all horrified. I said, wait a minute, this is how these people work. They're not putting that up unless they think it's going to get them the highest number of clicks. They're going to put up. They'll go put up Chris Knight's picture. They'll go put up Susan Olsen's picture. If they think
It's a compliment for sure.
If they put up mine, I am clickable.
You sure are. Absolutely, that is a compliment. Because people feel like they know you. It's like getting a picture in the mail of your niece. You want to know how she's doing. Is she okay? It looks like she got arrested. I'm worried.
It's very strange, or the whole thing of how it all works. And there are literally algorithms. I had a friend call me. She was really concerned about that film she had worked on was apparently showing in another country and nobody knew it had been released there. And I looked at them and went, oh dear, this isn't real. And she went, okay, wait, what do you mean not real? There's real, not real. What do you mean? I said, this is an algorithm where it picks movie titles or titles of shows with people like and says, you can buy it here. Mm-hmm. You can't, but they claim to have DVDs for sale or channels we can watch it. There's nothing there. It's at if you click on anything.
That's happened with my cow sales movie. You click on, you think someone's stolen your movie and you click there and there's nothing there.
Yes, but that means that's great. That means they like your movie. Somebody somewhere thinks mathematically that the title of your movie is a draw.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what it was. This project, somebody somewhere thought it was cool. Or, I don't know, it had my name on it. And so it popped up in that you may purchase this film, and it completely doesn't exist. And there's no. I
always wonder why people that smart to come up with this scheme aren't using their powers for good. You could figure out how to make a nice living with your brain,
Things you could do. And now you guys, as I said, you have this marvelous podcast. I know it's marvelous. I was on it. I'm looking, you talk about all the guests you have, and appealing to the boomer and Gen X, but you've had like everyone on. You've had Adam Schiff. You've had everybody. You've had Henry Winkler. Mm-hmm. Do I need to come and like poach your guests?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You should just stand by the doorway as they come out and hand them a flyer. Adam Schiff is a friend of Fritz's. And actually, Alison, if you want to come up to Santa Barbara on Sunday, we're having a fundraiser and he's going to be there. He would love to meet you.
I love him, but I will be actually in Chicago finishing up signing autographs or getting on the plane to return from there.
You are a busy girl.
Otherwise, yes. And Santa Barbara is fab. But yes, say hello to all of these guests of yours because I will come and steal them from you.
Let me ask you a question.
Henry should be on with you, yeah.
So with all these, they call them comfort food networks now, where they're rerunning, Little House and all these great shows. And as you've described, they're giving them a second life. Yes. Is that increased like your the autograph things and the Comic-Con appearances and all that kind of stuff. I mean, that's become a real industry for actors that were on those shows, right?
And it's a weird separate industry because it's like there's two kinds and one of the things that SAG is dealing with and talking about, please don't promote struck work, is there are autograph shows that are inside the industry. Comic-Con, if you go to the Comic-Con page and you read sponsors of this autograph show, there they are. There's all the networks. There's not streaming services, the networks, the studios, all of them. It is a corporate event, and there are autograph shows for that. And then there's the autograph shows, or Joe's Autograph Shack and Tractor Pull, that are so removed from Hollywood or the industry or the studios or anything. I have zero to do with them. They often have like arts and crafts marts combined with them. It's like, what is even going on here? And that's become an industry, especially for the stars, the celebrities who would never be at a Comic-Con or an industry-based one. It's like this whole like underground thing, and it's just but
SAG-AFTRA doesn't care that you do those things, right? Are those part of what you would strike, or are they not? They're not happy.
They are not. But because the world changed, and now, remember in the old days, if someone had a contract for film or television, it would say, well, you need to do interviews to promote the project. And, you'll go to the affiliates luncheon in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Now it's, you will post this many times on your Instagram and on your Facebook and your Twitter. You will attend the Comic-Con where you'll be on the panel, and you'll have the photos provided by the studio, and the studio car will pick you up, and you're, as they call it, under the auspices of the. And so that then becomes literally part of your contract.
Right.
You are working for the studio. So that's why it's very weird, because they're talking about the parameters of what promotion is and isn't allowed right now, what they're asking people to refrain from, and what is, because there are situations where it is absolutely, you are literally working for the network. You are literally.
I had the same thing when I was working. Literally. I had a personal services contract, and I went through a couple of strikes. I went through a writer's strike. I went through a NABET strike. But because you have a personal services contract, that power supersedes the power of the union. So I had to cross the picket line and go to work.
And then they're saying, if you already signed a contract prior to the strike, no, don't break the contract, but do as little as possible to, don't be promoting a film that is coming out right now that is a struck work. And so they're having to walk a line going, well, wait a minute, but if you're doing this, which has absolutely nothing to do with the picture or the studio,
your acting responsibilities have finished, and I don't understand that. That's odd.
And then also at the thing, if you're promoting yourself and you're talking about the actors and you're not talking about the actual product that was put up by the studio, then that's a completely different thing.
We've had actors deny coming on the podcast in deference to the strike. They wouldn't come on.
Well, and there's people who can't. Like, I know if you do a lot of red carpet events, and they go, well, yeah, but this celebrity, the only reason they're coming to the red carpet is specifically to promote a show or a film that is coming out right now. Mm-hmm. Which is totally one of the contracts that they are in the middle of negotiating. Therefore, they cannot promote it, because that is it's very difficult. That's why needs to get this thing over. But they're doing like they just did the marvelous agreement for independents who signed the interim agreement that if it's an independent producer that has no connection to any of the people they're striking against, and they sign the interim agreement agreeing to everything, great. But now they're saying, unless it's a Writers Guild project, because they're still on strike, and they haven't. They'd have to make a deal with the Writers Guild separately.
The only other stipulation is you have to agree to the SAG-AFTRA bargaining platform where they are right now.
And that's the thing. And most of the independent producers are like, sure,
no problem.
They're like, no, we can't.
But if it's a Writers Guild writer that wrote it,
but now they're saying if it is a WGA project, then they have to make a separate deal with them.
Wow.
It's a Gordian knot.
Right.
Exactly. And that's part of our the way the industry works now. None of this was an issue in the strike in 1980-81, but we didn't have any of this with the what's internet, what's Comic-Con, none of these venues that then started out. I mean, Comic-Con started as a bunch of nerds happily exchanging things, but everything got co-opted by the corporations and the studios.
Yeah, so suddenly it is so popular. Very, very wealthy people are drawn to things that are popular because they know there's money there.
How do you feel about the whole Alison, how do you feel about the whole AI thing? Because here's the thing. If AI was in and legal, that woman would have had to be used to impersonate you on that clickbait, with a Christmas T-shirt because they could just take an image of you and that wouldn't matter.
Which
what I
I'm
mean?
sure there's another clickbait that has done that.
Yeah.
But it's they're already doing that. AI, it's a disaster. And I just had on an author, Marvelous Man, talking about AI on my show a couple of weeks ago, and I called it the most terrifying interview I've ever done. And he was very calm about the whole thing. But there's not a 0 chance that they'll kill us all. Yeah, that's the problem. Because AI can it go Terminator Matrix? Yes, it can. Maybe not. So it's very scary. And the problem is that, yes, we have a situation where the producers are talking about, well, what if we just hire you for one day and then we just take that image, not just for this particular show or series or movie, but any other show we decide to make later that you did not agree to be in.
Ain't fair.
No, you can't do that. So and honestly, I think they should have nailed this down some years ago. I think that we are a little behind the 8 ball on this, that the actors in SAG, we are a little behind, that really 10 or more years ago, maybe 15 years ago, we should have said we need to talk about the AI. And
there's a lot of
should have
things
been nailed down some time ago because it's almost out of control now.
Yeah, there's a lot of places where big bloated industries are way behind. Just talk about the record industry. For example, you should have seen this coming. Okay.
Yeah.
And they choose not to because they want to hold on to their jobs until their retirement kicks in and what have you. So large behemoth industries don't think like a person saying, oh, it's getting hotter every day, let's do something about it. They tend to think like, well, let me just ride this thing out until I check off the planet and let my grandkids solve that one. I think if we thought more like people and less like big bloated things, we'd go, oh, maybe I can do something about that. Like, I think I can do an actual thing today that would help. But we tend to think of ourselves as a large ship that's difficult to turn. I think we have more power. Yeah.
Technology has leapt really further ahead than people's ability to follow the bouncing ball.
That's a good point. Yes. It's way ahead of us now. Because
I know there were people at SAG, years ago, when they were talking about the whole thing of video versus film and digital and the adventure digital, there was a whole segment of the guild saying, well, we have to get a handle on that and they have the merger, and obviously digital has to be the same terms. We can't say digital is a separate contract because it's all digital. There obviously were people who were saying, I'm sorry, I don't understand. What does that mean? Yeah. What do you mean there is no film, there's digital? What does that mean? And so you had the whole learning curve, people literally having to understand what the heck they were negotiating. Yeah, and I think we're there. I think we're there now. I think we have some very, very absolutely on it people who know what they're doing. But unfortunately, you have people going, wow, I just am catching up. Could please explain how the AI is going to do that? Because who thinks of these things?
Did you bring any show and tell? I'm not quite following what happens. How does
Are
this
there
work?
crayons? It's hard. And that's the thing. Technology has gone whoosh. And a lot of people were in a position where not only we have people in Washington debating things on the use of things on the internet and laws around AI and internet who are having to cram for an exam to understand what the meeting's about.
Yeah, that was funny when they had the tech giant, the one of the guys that invented AI is trying to do a preemptive strike and warn people about its potential. Yeah. Testified in front of Congress a couple of weeks ago, and these guys were all, they had no idea what he was talking about.
It would be funny if a robot ate him while he was testifying, just to illustrate the point.
Certainly.
And that's possible. And what do you do? How do you explain problems of copyright on the internet, intellectual property on the internet when everything, how do you explain this whole thing with NFTs? How do you explain AI? How do you explain that when you have people going, I don't know how to work my phone. I have to call my nephew.
Once again, they can't listen to a podcast and they're supposed to understand this testimony. No.
It's really hard. And and it's all I can do to keep up, but I can
see. You have baby Grace, and maybe they need baby Grace. And
I can call baby Grace if things get rough. But this is the thing, this technology has gone ring, and we're really having a hard time to keep up with how do we grasp this. And we're going to have to get a handle on it because it's not going away. Toothpaste not going back in tube.
Well, all industries are affected by it. And in some sectors, it might make life better on this planet, but it's going to take jobs away. New technology always takes jobs away.
Well, and I mean, I'd love to go on for like another 2 hours. We do actually have to wrap it up, but that's the guy I had on. He said, "Oh, there's a bunch of uses for AI and medical and a bunch of great stuff. Of course, it could also kill everybody."
But so can fire. So don't get too worried.
Exactly. And that's what he said. Things, these things happen. You got to make sure you don't, Oppenheimer, are we going to light up the sky on fire? Maybe everything will burn. We don't know. We don't know yet. So it's terrifying. I got to have you guys back. This has been great fun. We'll probably run this like Tuesday. It'll be a blast. Yay. And I hope to see you live in person again.
Thank you so much for inviting
Sunday
us.
afternoon at the El Portal.
You have nothing to worry about. It will be a long time before Alison Arngrim could be replaced by AI.
You are an original.
Doing what you're doing, girl.
And I say the same to you, too. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And hi, I'm Alison Arngrim, and this is the Alison Arngrim Show.